my name is Rachel. Welcome back to my channel. Today we are here for good vibes and fantasy romance, aka Romantasy books. I am so excited to start this vlog. The main focus of this video is that I wanted to start 3 brand new to me fantasy romance series that I'm just really excited about, that I wanted to start ASAP. And then I also have a couple of other books that I'm gonna add on to this vlog as well. But I am just so excited to be here and to yap about fantasy romance. What's kind of funny about filming this video is that I just posted a video on my channel where I was talking about like 19 book series that I'm in the middle of and that I should be continuing. But instead I'm here starting, like I said, 3 new series to add on to that list of series that I need to continue. So we're just having a good chaotic time over here. But the 3 series that I wanted to start in this video include the Legends of Thesmar series by Helen Shorer. Book 1 is Blood and Steel. All I know about this series is that we have our main character Althea, and she wants to train to be a warrior, but in this world, in the society, I think women aren't allowed to be that. But she gets our hero of the story, Wilder, to train her. So that vibe alone is slightly giving me a Court of Silver Flames vibes, you know, that training energy between Nesta and Cassian. I definitely have heard other people make that comparison. So yes, very excited about that. I also have Lady of Darkness, which is number 1 in the Lady of Darkness series by Melissa K. Rorick. I'm currently reading this, so I will get into this in a second. But I have heard people compare this to Throne of Glass, and that honestly sold me because Throne of Glass is my favorite fantasy series of all time. And I personally love when other series are compared to series that I love. And then last but certainly not least, we have The Serpent and the Wings of Night by Carissa Broadbent. I am finally reading the Crowns of Nyaxia series. I read her War of Lost Hearts trilogy last year and loved it so much. Oh my god, that is like one of my favorite fantasy series of all time at this point. So good. So I've been putting off starting her other books because her backlist is finite and I don't want to run out of books to read by her. I am just so obsessed with this author's writing and I've heard phenomenal things about this series. I feel like I am like the last person on Romance BookTube to pick this book up. I know so many of my friends have read this series and absolutely love it. All I know is that this involves vampires, and at least this first book involves trials. I think the heroine is a human, the hero is a vampire, and so he's helping her get through the trials, I think. But yeah, when it comes to most of the books that I read, I usually go in pretty blind. I don't want to know too much, especially when it comes to fantasy, because I feel like every revelation about like the magic system in the world, it's like almost like a mini plot twist, you know? And so I just don't want to know too much. But let's get to the books that I'm currently reading. Number 1 is Lady Midnight by Cassandra Clare. Let's admire this cover together because it's one of my favorites. I adore all of the covers for the Shadowhunter Chronicles. So this is book 1 in the Dark Artifices, which is the 3rd series in her Shadowhunter Chronicles world. And this is a reread for me. I am currently in the middle of rereading all of the Shadowhunter Chronicles books so that I can finally dive into the Last Hours trilogy, which is the most recent series in this world. I had read book 1 of that series back in 2020, but I just realized that I really just need to reread all of the books in this universe because technically all of the series are like standalone, but they are also interconnected. So I just wanted to be fresh on all of this material before really diving into that Last Hours trilogy. So I'm having a wonderful time rereading this. I'm just about 50% of the way through this. For me, the characters of this series are such a highlight. I mean, that could be said about all of Cassandra Clare's books and series, but I just love the family and found family element in this. This first book centers around this like murder mystery that's going on, but also our two main characters, Emma and Julian, they are what is known as parabatai, and it is forbidden for parabatai to be romantically involved with each other, but they're finding that the older and older they get, they're now 17 in this first book, that they just cannot deny their feelings for each other. So it's got that forbidden, you know, angsty romance vibe to it as well. And like, I'm just loving this. I'm gonna jump back into this once I'm done with this reading update. But first, I wanted to give my first update for the Lady of Darkness series by Melissa K. Rorick. This is book 1, like I said, of a 5-book series, and I wanted to start with this series rather than her Legacy series because I've heard that all of her series that she's planning, like we only have 2 series from her so far, this series and then Legacy, like I said, I've heard that all of her series are interconnected in some way. So I just want to have like the full context before going into the Legacy series, but I've heard nothing but phenomenal things about those books. But yes, I wanted to start here first. So I am pretty far into this. I am 38% of the way through. That is page 197, chapter 23. Usually I would have given a first update about a book earlier in my reading journey. I probably would have given an update like at some point yesterday, for example, but something about this book, I really needed more page time and I really needed to get into more of like the meat of the story before I could form a full opinion. But yeah, this has just been a really interesting reading experience for me because I've been working through this book the last couple of days. And the first day that I started this, I had read the first 10% and I really didn't know what to think of it. I really didn't know what to think of our main character, Scarlet. She is absolutely Selena Sardathian coded, but at least in that first like 10 to 15% of the book, I feel like she's just like very in your face about being like an angry badass assassin, and I wasn't seeing any other nuance to her character, so I was just kind of confused. But I am glad to say that the more and more I've read of this book, we're learning more and more about her character, and I feel like we're seeing more of that nuance that I wanted, which is great. There's a love triangle element to this, which is wonderful, and there are definitely Throne of Glass vibes in this. Not only our main character, but she has this kind of complicated romantic relationship with a prince of the kingdom that she lives in, and he definitely gives me Dorian vibes. And then she is also getting to know and training with this guy, Riker, who is essentially like a captain of the guard. He is in charge of this like elite part of the military, and he definitely gives me Kale vibes, and there's a love triangle going on between the 3 of them so far. But this book and this story is also different from Throne of Glass. It's definitely not a copycat story or anything like that. One thing that I am really enjoying, I'll just show you guys real quick a map of this kingdom, and so to the north of this continent, there's like the fire court, the wind court. To the south, we have the water court, the earth court. So those are Fae courts. And then in the middle of this continent, we have 3 mortal kingdoms, but there's also the witch kingdoms over here. So there's going to be witches at some point. We also have the night children over here, which are vampires, and then we have the shifters down here, which I would assume are like animal shifters. So I think that that's really cool that within this one continent we have so many different types of paranormal beings. I'm also really liking how the Fae are being incorporated into the story so far. It's just very interesting, very intriguing. And then 2 major plot points so far is that Scarlet, our main character, is owned by this ruthless assassin lord. Again, definitely Throne of Glass coded. But he presents her with this job that could be her way to get revenge against the person that killed her mother some years back. And then we are seeing that children are going missing from like essentially her hometown, and this has been happening for a while, and so we're also trying to figure out that mystery as well. So yes, I am definitely really enjoying this the more and more that I read. Like, that is going to be it for this first reading update, and I will talk to you guys probably tomorrow or the next day. All right, hello my lovely bookish besties. How are we doing? I have some updates for this vlog that I'm very much excited to talk about. First things first, I finished Lady of Darkness by Melissa K. Rorick, and then I read the first like 60 or so pages of Blood and Steel by Helen Shorer, so I also want to give some initial thoughts about this book. But Lady of Darkness, I liked this book. I definitely enjoyed it. I gave it 4 stars. I liked the characters, I liked the plot. Not crazy about like the main romance. Like I mentioned in my last update, there's definitely an element of a love triangle, and I think I actually like the character who isn't much of a love interest anymore. Basically, Scarlet, our main character, a lot of the focus of this book is her developing relationship with Riker, aka Soren. We learn very early on in the book that his name is actually Soren, and he is Fae, from one of the Fae kingdoms in this world. And so it's like mainly their relationship going on, but she also has / had a relationship with the crown prince of this kingdom, Callan, and I actually like him more than Soren. I don't love Soren, and I don't love him and Scarlet together, and I don't know why. Like, there's no concrete reason. I feel like he's saying all the right things that a good love interest should say to the main character, you know? But I'm thinking that there is going to be another love interest introduced later on in the series, whether that be book 2 or beyond. This is a 5-book series. There's a character that has appeared in a couple of Scarlet's dreams in this book, and I'm wondering if he's gonna be like the Rowan Whitethorn of this series, because my God, does this book take a lot of inspiration from Throne of Glass. I feel like if you had a little cauldron, a little fantasy romance cauldron, and you put like a heaping serving of Throne of Glass with a dash of like ACOTAR and the From Blood and Ash series by Jennifer L. Armentrout, I feel like you would probably get this series. That's definitely the vibe that I'm getting, and I'm a little conflicted about that because I said this in my last update. I don't need every book or every series I read to be like super original. I actually love when book series take inspiration from other series that I love. Throne of Glass is my favorite fantasy series ever, right? But the more that I was reading this book, the more that I was like, okay, there's actually a lot of inspiration being taken, especially from Throne of Glass. And if anything, it was making me just want to reread Throne of Glass. So like, while I did enjoy this book, I like this author's writing, I like where the story is going, I'm definitely a bit conflicted about it as well. All right, my battery died, but we are back. So the question of the day is, am I going to continue this series? Do I want to continue this series? The answer to that is yes, especially because I read at least like the first part of the synopsis of the next book, which is Lady of Ashes, and I'm very intrigued by where the plot is going, and it sounds like we're going to be introduced to new characters. I mean, especially where this book ended, we're absolutely going to be meeting a lot of new characters. We're in a new setting now. Then I just started Blood and Steel by Helen Shore. This is book 1 in her Legends of Thesmar series, an epic romantic fantasy. And I'm currently on page 63, that is chapter 6. I just wanted to give my initial thoughts because I'm already kind of loving this, actually. I'm really liking the vibe and the setup that we have going on so far. So this centers around our main character, Althea, and she has known that she is going to die when she is 27. For a very long time. She has what is known as, I think it's like a fate stone, and a prophet told her that she will die when she's 27. And so with her death being foretold, she only has 3 years to become what she always has wanted to be, which is essentially a warrior for this kingdom, for Thesmar. And things are more complicated because for the last like 20 years, women have been forbidden from wielding blades and from being warriors because of this prophecy that basically foretold that a female warrior would be like the end of their world as they knew it. And so then we have our other major character, Wilder Hawthorne, who is a very elite warrior in this world. He is one of only 3, I think they're called war swords, and they're seeing that over the years, less and less soldiers are even capable of taking this right that you need to take to become a war sword. So that's really why there's only 3 of them left. And so the catalyst for this story is Wilder catches Althea with this special dagger that only a war sword would have in their possession. And so where I left off, Althea was just about to be kicked out of the fortress that she lives in with her sister and with her friends. Women in this kingdom now can only have certain kinds of jobs, and so her and her sister are alchemists, but Althea is not very good at it, and she doesn't really have an interest. She really just wants to be a warrior. So yeah, she's about to get kicked out of their fortress when her supervisor basically comes to her defense, and it sounds like she has convinced the guildmaster to let Althea plead her case to become a warrior for Thesmar, to the monarchs of this kingdom. I think there's 5 kingdoms that make up the mid-realms, as you can see at the bottom of this page. What's also interesting is there is something known as the Veil. You'll see it over here as well as over here. It's like this mist that is supposed to protect the mid-realms from like crazy monsters, and apparently there have been breaches in this veil, so that's definitely raising the stakes for this series. But yeah, not very far into this, but I'm really enjoying the writing style. I really like Thea as a main character. I love stories like this where we just have a character who wants to be a part of something greater than herself, who wants to be a fighter, wants to be a warrior. So far, so good. Okay, I think I'm in focus. Hello, everyone. It is definitely time for another check-in for this vlog. I'm having such a good time with the books that I'm reading right now. Let's just get right on into it. I have 3 books to talk about. So I am still on my Full Metal Alchemist journey. I read volume 19 last night, and so I just wanted to quickly mention that. I now have 8 volumes left of this series. There's 27 volumes total, and it's like so wild to think that this story is going to be wrapping up so soon. On the one hand, I feel like I've been reading this series forever, but it really hasn't been that long. I started my reread of the first 12 volumes at the beginning of January, and now we're in March and here we are. And like, oh my God, this story just gets like crazier and crazier, so epic, like just an incredible and well-rounded fantasy sci-fi story that I feel like has something for everyone. I say that every time I talk about this series, but like seriously, like just pick it up. It's just so freaking good. I did want to bring up my reread of Lady Midnight. I finished my reread, I believe Friday night, so just a couple days ago, and I think I loved this even more than I did the first time. My first read through, I gave this 4 stars. Upon reread, I'd probably give this more of like a 4.5 star rating. I really enjoyed it. I just love these characters so much, and there's some like interesting and creepy things going on, especially towards the end of this. One of the many things I love about this series that I feel like I always forget to talk about when talking about the Shadowhunter Chronicles is that, like I've mentioned, there are a lot of different kinds of paranormal beings in this world. It's urban fantasy, so we've got Shadowhunters, which are demon hunters. We have werewolves, vampires, warlocks, and fairies. And the way that the fae are written in this world is like traditional fae folklore. It reminds me a lot of the way Holly Black writes her fae in like the Elfame series. Like, I am just so obsessed with how ruthless and cunning the fae in this world are. It's so good. And I could go on and on and on about my love for this world, these characters, all of that, but I'm really excited to move on in my reread to book 2, which is Lord of Shadows. I'll probably pick that up in a couple of weeks. And then last but certainly not least, I have an update for Blood and Steel by Helen Schorer. So I am now 50% of the way through. I'm on page 269. That is chapter 22. And that is pretty much exactly halfway through. And guys, this is so good. This is very good. I'm having a wonderful little time reading this book. So now she is training with all of these men, and at first, of course, they like hate her guts, and she makes some really great friends along the way. And then Wilder, our other main character, our love interest, he ends up training the group of shield bearers that Thea is a part of, him and then the 2 other war swords that are left. There's only 3 of them left in existence. As I've been reading this book, I've been thinking about, you know, why am I loving this so much? And part of it is like the writing and the characters, the story itself like is very interesting and very well done. But I've come to realize that I really love stories where the main character is training to become a warrior. And that made me think about my like ultimate favorite Disney movie is Mulan. I adore that movie. Oh my God. And I'm pretty sure my favorite part of that movie is when she's training with the army. And so yeah, like this book is definitely giving me similar vibes and I'm absolutely loving it. So I'm getting a 5-star feeling from this. We will see how the second half goes. Hello everyone. It's Wednesday, my dudes. I have 2 books to talk about and I'm very excited about both of them. First up, I finished Blood and Steel by Helen Schorer, not last night, but the night before, and 5 stars, my dudes. Our first 5 stars of the vlog, and oh, I loved this so much. Oh my God. Like, ugh. From the writing, I really enjoy both Thea and Wilder as our main characters. I loved the setting of this fortress and, you know, Thea training to be a shield bearer. And towards the end of this, Thea is going through her trial to become, I think it's a guardian. I think it's like shield bearer then guardian, if I'm not mistaken. And like the friends she makes along the way, and loving this romance between Wilder and Thea. I feel like the pacing of it is very well done, given that this is a 4-page or a 4-book series rather. I just love where their romance kind of like ended in this book. Very much looking forward to seeing how that further develops in future books. This was just great. I love the way this ended. Like literally the last paragraph of this book, it's from Wilder's POV, and oh my God, I was obsessed. Like, I am very, very excited to continue on with this series. I think I am gonna follow the suggested reading order and read Slaying the Shadow Prince, which takes place in this world, follows different characters, and then I would continue with, I think, book 2 of this is called Vows and Ruins. I feel like this would also be a really good fantasy romance to read if you are new to the genre, if you're new to more fantastical stories in general, because the world building I thought was very easy to understand. This is, at least as of now, a pretty, you know, self-contained smaller world to understand, and the magic system isn't complicated or anything like that. So I definitely think this would be a really good one to go with if you're getting into fantasy or fantasy romance. Then last night, I just started Throne of the Fallen by Kerri Maniscalco. I decided to fit an extra fantasy romance into this vlog because this has been on my TBR for months, maybe even a year. I remember sometime last year I was watching a Romantasy vlog that Chandler from Chandler Ainsley did. Basically, she was trying to find the answer to like, what exactly is Romantasy? What is the balance between fantastical elements and a fantastical plot and a romance, right? And most of the books that she read for that vlog, she really didn't enjoy. However, she loved this. And I have to tell you, I am really enjoying it as well, which I'm pleasantly surprised by because I have read Kerri Maniscalco before. I read her entire Stalking Jack the Ripper series, so this is her first adult novel. Everything that she's written previously has been YA. So I've read her entire Stalking Jack the Ripper series. I enjoyed that series. I didn't like absolutely love it. I do feel like overall it's a middle of the road series, but I do have to say the love interest in that series, Thomas Cresswell, like he's absolutely the best part of that series in my opinion. And then I did start her Kingdom of the Wicked series, which actually takes place in the same world that this book does. I read Kingdom of the Wicked, book 1. I remember liking it, but I didn't love it, and then I just like never continued on with the rest of the series. Maybe at some point I'll go back and try it again, but all of that to say, like, she's definitely been a hit or miss author for me. There have been a couple books in like the Stalking Jack the Ripper series that I like really loved and like I almost gave 5 stars, but then there's other books of hers that I really didn't enjoy so much. So I'm honestly truly viewing this book as like Kerri Maniscalco's last chance for me. If I don't love this book, I feel like her books are just not for me. However, I'm really, really enjoying this. I am on page 48, that is chapter 4. So this takes place in a really cool and interesting world. I'll actually show you guys the map. And I love that the map is included in the end pages, so I don't have to like flip to it when I want to refer to it. I can just open the book cover. And so we see like this is Waverly Green, where the story is taking place, at least at the moment, where our main character Camilla lives. And then this shows a map of the world. We have like the underworld here, which looks like a fae court because there's like a Seelie and an unseelie side. And then this is more so, I guess, like the real world, but as you can see, it looks like Italy, very Italian inspired. But Waverly Green, it definitely has a Regency London feel to it, which is really cool. So we have our two main characters, Camilla and then Envy, the Prince of Envy. This world in this series follows the 7 princes of hell, and so each prince is representative of a deadly sin, right? And so we see that Envy at the beginning of this book, his court of envy is like failing in some way. Like the people that live in this court are like, I don't know, kind of like going crazy, kind of losing it, and he doesn't know what's going on. But he basically enters this deadly game to try to bring his court back to its former glory, to normalcy again. And then we have Camilla, our heroine, who lives in Waverly Green. Like I said, that feels like Regency London. She runs an art gallery, and she gets approached by Envy to paint a painting of what is known as the Hexed Throne, where like one half of it looks normal and the other half is like burning and on fire. And Envy needs this painting for this game that he's playing, but Camilla is refusing to paint it because she says that it's just incredibly bad luck to paint a cursed object or a hexed object of any kind. And so that's kind of where I left off, just kind of the setup. I want to say first and foremost, the audiobook is great. Oh my God. Like the first chunk of the audiobook, there was like music playing in the background, which I thought was really cool, really set the scene. Shane East is one of the narrators. He narrates Envy's POV chapters, and I am just obsessed with him as a narrator. Like he puts his all into his narrations, the different voices that he comes up with for the different characters. Like I just love it. And the female narrator is doing a really great job as well. But I just wanted to bring up the audiobook because it's really, really well done so far. So very, very excited to continue on with the series. This is giving me all the historical romance vibes, but of course there's that fantasy element and plot to this as well. And I just love the idea of this world centering around these 7 princes of hell. So I'm really hoping that I love this, because like I said, I might go back to the Kingdom of the Wicked trilogy, because that one centers around the Prince of Wrath. And yeah, so with that being said, I'm gonna go eat some lunch and then I have to go to work, but I will talk to you guys later. Hey guys, so first things first, I have quite the book haul here. And I think that's because I haven't filmed a vlog in well over a month. So I have quite a few like book of the month books, because this past box I ordered 4 books, which is like unheard of for me. I think the most books that I've ordered from book of the month is like 2, maybe 3. So I definitely went a bit overboard with my book of the month subscription. And then I also have other books here. These are all fantasy books, most of them fantasy romance. Can we tell that that is my era at the moment? So first I have some Barnes & Noble exclusive editions that I had ordered a while back. First up here, we have Heavenly Bodies. This is a beautiful cover, and look at those dark purple edges. So this is a fantasy romance that I have heard, I feel like so many people raving about. This is the first book of the series, and from what I understand, this first book has been out for a while, and it's taken a while for the next book to come out. I think the next book though is coming out later this year though. But yeah, I've heard a lot of good things from people who have read this first book. From what I understand, this fantasy romance has more of like a celestial vibe to it. And like the heroine gives like star and like night vibes, and the hero apparently gives like sun vibes. And I just love that concept. So that's really all I need to know. I'm excited. Then I did pre-order The Bones Beneath My Skin by TJ Klune. This is his newest release, though I did realize this is a book that he actually wrote a long time ago and was republished by Tor fairly recently. I love this metallic look to the cover. Don't know what makes this exclusive. Oh, it says it includes special content. So that's fun. Next, I am ready to start my full-on Brandy Sandy journey in 2025. So I just went ahead and bought a paperback box set of the original Mistborn trilogy. So it has the first 3 books of the series. This is also a Tor publication, and I think they recently redid the covers for this series, and I do like the look of them. I'll just pull these books out now. I love that they are very, very floppy paperbacks. We love that. But this is the cover for book 1 for Mistborn. I have heard from numerous YouTubers, because I have looked up videos on this topic, that this is the best series to start with when diving into his Cosmere universe. A lot of people have very different opinions on the reading order that you should go with, but I've heard pretty much everyone agree that you should just start with Mistborn. Then we have book 2, The Well of Ascension. And then finally book 3, The Hero of Ages. Next up, I caved and I bought the first 2 books of Cassandra Clare's Swordcatcher series, which is her newest series and her first foray into adult fantasy, which is very, very exciting. I will hold up this first book first. Look how beautiful the cover is. I will say, I was not originally planning on reading this series because I had heard Crystal talk about reading this first book and she kind of hated it. She gave it like 2 stars, and I vividly remember in like her Goodreads review, she talked about how the romance featured in this book just doesn't hold a candle to the romances in Cassandra Clare's Shadowhunter books. And this also is just like a completely different world. It has nothing to do with the Shadowhunter Chronicles. I don't even think this is urban fantasy. I think it's high fantasy. And so given that this is Cassandra Clare's, you know, first real foray into really a completely different genre when you think about it, I don't know, I just wasn't excited to read it after seeing her review. But then my girl Emmy, I recently started following her. She is one of the queens of fantasy romance that I follow, and I get a lot of recommendations from her. She recently read this first book and like absolutely adored it, and the things that she loved about it are things that are present in Cassandra Clare's other books. So all that to say, I have a feeling that I am going to enjoy this. Ooh, that is so cool. Look at this map on the end pages. I love that. And another reason why I decided to just cave and buy both books that are currently out is that The Ragpicker King, which is book 2, came out I think this week, very recently. And when I saw that all first editions have this art print on the naked hardback, I immediately added both of these books to my cart and had to get them because, oh my God, are we seeing this? And from what I know of the synopsis, it's very intriguing. It centers around our 2 main characters, Kel and Prince Connor Aurelian. And I think Kel, yeah, he becomes the sword catcher, which essentially is a body double for the prince. And I just find that plot alone to be very intriguing. So yes, very excited. And then last but certainly not least, I have this big old stack of all of these book of the month books that I have gotten in the past few months. First and foremost, we have The God of the Woods by Liz Moore. So this won book of the year from book of the month. And look at the sprayed edges. And I love like the dripping pink. Love that. This, ooh, that's cool. There's like an imprint on the back of this cover too that it won the Lolly Book Award for 2020 or 2024. Liz Moore's most ambitious and wide-reaching novel yet, The God of the Woods, is a story of inheritance and second chances, the tensions between a family and a community, and a history that will not let any of them go. The main reason why I decided to pick up a copy of this is not only because it won this award, you know, from Book of the Month, so that means that a lot of people enjoyed this, but they were doing a promotion that you could get a copy of either the winner or the finalists completely for free. And so I was like, hell yeah, I'll take a free book, and I'm very intrigued by that plot. Next up we have Our Infinite Fates by Laura Steven. This was my actual pick for March. I'm pretty sure, yes, March. This one, I was immediately intrigued because it says they've loved each other in 1,000 lifetimes. They've killed each other in every one. So it's giving reincarnation, giving, you know, epic romance. I think this is YA. The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue meets This Is How You Lose the Time War. Hell yes, because I love both of those books. Fantastical and epic love story that defies death as two souls reincarnate through the centuries. I'm sold. And look how pretty and shiny that cover is. Yes, please. Next, I did get a copy of Phantasma by Kaylee Smith. This one just sounds like a really fun time. I know that it involves the heroine going through some trials, and I've heard the hero compared to Danny Phantom, and that's all I needed to hear. I am sold. I am hooked. Very excited to read this at some point. Something about the vibe of this is giving me vibes of Throne of the Fallen, which is what I'm currently reading, and I'll talk about that book in a minute. But there's like similar vibes happening. Then I got the Crimson Moth duology or duet by Kristen Ciccarelli. Not really sure how she pronounces her name, but it is an Italian last name. I've heard nothing but phenomenal things about this duet. Rebel Witch came out very, very recently. Heartless Hunter came out last year. I know that it involves a witch and a witch hunter, which definitely gives me vibes of Serpent and Dove by Shelby Mahurin, and I really enjoyed those books. Last but not least, I have, this was my pick for February, I'm pretty sure. Yeah, February. This is First Time Caller by B.K. Borison. I have not read any books by this author yet. I have not read her Love Light Farm series yet, but I need to get on that. But I am very excited. I have heard nothing but phenomenal things. People just raving and raving and raving about how this is just an amazing rom-com, or it gives like rom-com vibes. A hopeless romantic meets a demoralized radio host in this cozy, sleepless, and Seattle-inspired love story. Yeah, as soon as I saw, you know, hopeless romantic radio, I definitely thought of Sleepless in Seattle. All right, we have been yapping long enough about all those books. Let's talk about books that I am currently reading. I actually just finished Tempt Me at Twilight by Lisa Kleypas. I am reading this as part of the Hathaway's read-along that I am doing with some of my friends, B, Tiffany, Ava, and Christy. I think that's everyone. Yeah, there's 5 of us total. I'll link everybody down in the description, but we have a live show discussion about this book in particular on Sunday, which is just in a couple of days. So I finished this a little while ago, and this is a reread for me. The Hathaway series, I've read all of the books once before, and I'm just having a wonderful time rereading these. Let me just tell you right now, if you are a villain gets the girly, you are going to eat this book up. Harry, our hero, is just so ruthless and will go to the ends of the earth to have Poppy, the heroine. And it's even brought up throughout this book that he's not the hero of the story, he's the villain. And Poppy finds by the end that she wants the villain. She doesn't want the fairy tale hero. And yeah, just wonderful. A good old time. Speaking of a good old time, I am in the middle of Throne of the Fallen by Carrie Maniscalco. I am about 60% of the way through. I am now on page 356, that is chapter 45, and I have this much of the book left. I have about like 6 hours left of the audiobook, and I am really loving this. Chandler, you know what's up. I definitely need to take more of her recommendations seriously, because I feel like pretty much every book I've picked up based off of her recommendation, I've at least really, really enjoyed, or maybe even loved. But yeah, this is my kind of fantasy romance. It really has the perfect amount of like romance, the development of the relationship between Camilla and Envy, you know, the sexual tension, the chemistry, all of those things, as well as, you know, 50% of a very solid fantastical plot. I love that this book is focusing on this game that Envy and now Camilla are both involved in. This gives vibes of like a quest story, and I don't usually love quest books, and I don't know why. I don't really have like a tangible reason for that. That's just not the kind of plot that I get excited about. However, because it's centered around this game and like finding clues as a part of this game, I'm really enjoying it. I love how this book is exploring different parts of this world. Like, looking at the map, we've pretty much covered like the whole map, except for like the fake hordes, which I just think is so cool. I also love that, like I mentioned in my last update, like this gives historical romance vibes, given that the first part of the book takes place in Waverly Green, which feels like Regency London. But then we also have this underworld where we have the princes of hell, Envy being one of them, and we have all kinds of different paranormal creatures. We've got vampires, shifters, werewolves, witches, I think, fae, of course, like, and even more creatures than that have been mentioned in this book so far. I am really enjoying the relationship between Camilla and Envy. I will say up front, some of you are not going to love this book as much as I am, simply because their romance, even up to where I am in the book right now, I'm past the halfway mark, their relationship has been lust driven the whole time. Absolutely. Their relationship is based on their attraction to each other, as well as they're intrigued about each other, they're curious about each other, but yeah, like, it's definitely not like a lovey-dovey little romance in this book. It's definitely like a cat and mouse game. And I love that we're frequently switching up like who the cat is and who the mouse is, like who has the upper hand in terms of this game that Envy and Camilla are playing with each other. I also just have to say the steamy scenes in this, and I think there's been 2 so far, they're really good. I really feel like Carrie Maniscalco has found her genre in adult fantasy romance. I'm also excited to move on to the next book of the series, which I think is called Throne of Secrets. That one is gonna be centering around gluttony, or the Prince of Gluttony. I'm very intrigued about that book just because I've heard like nobody talk about it, at least like nobody that I follow. By the way, if you love the Belladonna series by Adeline Grace, I'm also getting slight vibes of that series in this book. And I think it's mainly because this has that historical romance feel. It has a creepy vibe to it at times as well, just like the Belladonna series. I'm just having a good old time. That is gonna be it for this update. I'm definitely gonna finish this at some point tomorrow, and then I'll give you guys a final update about this book. And then I will jump into the final book of this vlog, which is Serpent in the Wings of Night. All right, what is up, my dudes? It is Sunday night. Let's just jump on in and chat about some books. So last night, pretty late last night, I finished Throne of the Fallen by Carrie Maniscalco. Loved it. This was great. This was fabulous. Really had a good old time with this. This is a chunky book. It's almost 600 pages, and I feel like it needed to be that long to really tell Envy and Camilla's story. There is a lot going on in this story for sure, with this game that they are playing and the aftermath of the game. And like I said in my last update, I love that we end up visiting a lot of different lands and like areas of this world. I just love how this turned out. I really enjoyed seeing Envy and Camilla make it to their happily ever after. Definitely an angsty romance for sure. They don't get together until like, I want to say the last 10 or 15 pages of the book. And then they don't say I love you to each other until the very last page. So yeah, but this was a wonderful time. Definitely so glad that I picked this up because I think I'm a Carrie Maniscalco fan now. Very much looking forward to reading Throne of Secrets at some point. I'm not going to pick that up anytime soon. I'm not really feeling motivated to. At the end of the day, these are all interconnected standalones, so it's not like this had like a huge cliffhanger or anything like that. This really is its own self-contained story in a lot of ways, though there are a lot of references to the Kingdom of the Wicked trilogy, which I think I might try that series again. I did read book 1. I liked it. I remember giving it 4 stars, but I just never continued on with that trilogy. But I think I might give that a second chance. Then tonight I picked up The Serpent and the Wings of Night by Carissa Broadbent. This is going to be my final book for this vlog, and we are ending on a good one, my dudes. Sweet niblets. This is good. So I have read from Carissa Broadbent before. I know that most people, when getting into her books, have started with this one. And now that I'm reading this book, I would recommend that people that are new to Carissa Broadbent start with this book and this series first. Just because this has a more like urban fantasy vibe to it. And the plot with like this trial, this series of trials that's going on. I feel like it was just super easy for me to start this book and to get swept away with the story. Whereas Daughter of No Worlds, the War of Lost Hearts trilogy, as much as I adore that series and love that series, that one just has a more high fantasy feel to it. And I feel like it just took me a little bit more time to get really invested in that book and in that story. Whereas this one, like right away, I was hooked. So yeah, if you have never read Carissa Broadbent before, I would say go ahead and start with this book. So very basic synopsis. We have our main character, Aurea. She is a human living in a world full of vampires. Humans exist, plenty of other humans exist, but they are definitely second-class citizens. They are prey to the vampires. And so she is the adopted human daughter of the Nightborn vampire king, whose name is Vincent. And there are these trials set to happen very soon called the Kajari, a legendary tournament held by the goddess of death herself, who is Nyaxia. And in case you didn't know, this book is book 1 in the Crowns of Nyaxia series, which is essentially a series of duets from what I understand. So this is absolutely giving Hunger Games. The Kajari is a series of 5 trials where at the end there is 1 victor and 1 survival. It sounds like all of the other contestants have to die for there to be this 1 victor. And the person who wins the Kajari gets 1 wish from Nyaxia, from this goddess of death who rules over the world that this takes place in. So where I am in the story, they have just completed the first trial. She has had a couple of interactions with this man, Rain, who is a vampire. The vampires in this world have wings, by the way, which I think is interesting. There's different types of vampires, and the different kinds of vampires have different kinds of wings. He is, I think, a Rishon vampire, which means that he has like feathery wings. And there's another type of vampires that have like bat-like wings. So where I just stopped in the book, Rain, Aurea, and a few other contestants fought in this trial, the first trial together, and they have completed it. But now Aurea is severely injured from it. And Rain has some human medicine for her, but he's only going to give it to her if she agrees to ally herself with him and a friend of his. She's obviously very skeptical, very suspicious of him. Why would he want to ally himself with a human? And so right where this chapter ended, she rejected him, but I have a feeling that she's going to end up agreeing to it for her own survival. So I'm loving this. I have to say, from page 1, the pacing has been absolutely immaculate. I have flown through the first I'm on page 97, the first 97 pages of this book. This is reminding me of the Hunger Games for a couple of reasons. One of them, obviously, you know, we've got this trial type thing happening where it sounds like you have to kill everyone else to be the winner. So there's only one survivor, one victor. But also, because the pacing is just so freaking good so far. I remember the first time that I read The Hunger Games, the first time that I read book 1, that was like the one thing that really struck me about that first book in particular, is just how immaculately paced it is. The pacing is fast, but it's not too fast, and you just want to keep reading. And that's how I feel about this book so far as well. So first impressions so far, I am obsessed. I'm kind of sad that I have to go to work tomorrow because I really wish that I could just spend the day reading this book. Oh, before I forget, let me show you guys the naked hardback of this because it's really pretty. So my copy is the indie version that was originally published. I believe this was published in, was it? Yeah, 2022. And then this series was picked up by Bramble, which is a traditional publisher, maybe last year, if I'm not mistaken. So I've had this copy since 2022, just sitting on my shelves. But this naked hardback is so pretty. Look at that. I'm obsessed. It says House of Night. And then on the back, never trust, never yield, always guard your heart. I am obsessed with this. So I just finished Serpent and the Wings of Night, like 5, maybe 10 minutes ago, and I am not well. Oh my God. Like, I'm feeling almost like sick to my stomach after the way that ended, and I'm not gonna say any spoilers, but right now, this is how I'm feeling towards Rain.
I was rooting for you. We were all rooting for you. How dare you?
And that's all I'm gonna say, because I do not want to spoil any of this book for you guys, but like, just know I am very unwell. I don't know that I've like ever felt this way after finishing a book. Like, I'm feeling like anxious for especially Aurea. I don't even know like where or how to start this review of this book. Like, it's fucking fantastic. I gave it 5 stars, but like, ooh, the way I'm feeling right now is not it. Like, oh my God, I'm just like feeling very uneasy. And like, it's also crazy because the reading order for this series is that you're supposed to jump into the novella, which is called 6 Scorched Roses, which is following completely different characters from what I understand. So I'm not gonna get the conclusion to Aurea and Rain's story until I read that novella. And then I jump into book 2, which is, what is it? Ashes and the Star-Cursed King. This is gonna take me some time to process for sure. Like, I don't see myself like immediately jumping into the next book of the series. Like, I really feel like I gotta sit with this book for a minute, which is fine because there are a lot of other books that I want to be reading and should be reading. Anyway, but okay, so yes, this was fantastic. Like I mentioned in my last update, I thought the pacing was so well done really the whole time. I don't think that there was ever a time where the pacing lulled. I feel like it was just a really well-paced novel all the way throughout. I love the concept of the Kajari, of these 5 trials that our characters are participating in. I thought that each trial was unique and interesting. And even though I've read other fantasy novels with trials, I've never read trials quite like these. I just thought that alone was very, very well done. I'm really enjoying the world building of this Crowns of Nyaxia world. I can't wait to see how Carissa Broadbent expands the world or further develops the world as we get further and further into the series. I am obsessed with Aurea. Oh my God, I love her so much. I totally understand like where she's coming from, her motivations and everything, why she is the way that she is. And there are parts of her character that devastate me because she's human, and for a lot of this book, she hates her humanity. She hates being human. And like reading those passages where she would talk about that in her inner monologue was like so difficult for me. Like, wow, like the self-hatred that she had. Like, I do want to say trigger warning for, she does mention that she would harm herself because she hated her humanity so much. And like, wow, like she's such a badass too. Like, she's a very complex and complicated character and just such a believable character. The romance aspect in this between Aurea and Rain, whoo boy, like completely got me in my feels. I cried at one point during a scene between the two of them. The way that their relationship builds and develops, it's just masterfully written. Like, this book is just, to me, like a masterclass in what fantasy romance should be. And like, I can tell you guys right now, this is gonna be one of my favorite books of the year, I think. Absolutely devastated, absolutely unwell. After finishing this book, holy shit. Like, I feel like I'm gonna just like go sit down, like after I'm done filming this clip, I'm just gonna go sit down and like stare at the wall for 30 minutes because I don't even know what to do with myself, and I have shit to do before I can go to bed tonight. I am here to wrap up this vlog now that I have read all the books that I wanted to read for this vlog. I thought it would be fun to kind of rank the 4 fantasy romance books that I read over the course of this vlog in order of like how excited I am to continue on with the series. I think for the book that I'm the least excited about continuing the series would probably be Lady of Darkness. Now that I'm looking, this is the only book that I gave less than 5 stars, and I am definitely very intrigued about continuing on with the series, especially after hearing some of my bookish friends talk about the series and how like it gets so much better after book 1. Like, this book wasn't bad by any means, but it wasn't amazing either. And like with the similarities to the Throne of Glass series and like the predictable plot twists and turns, it's just not making me feel very excited to continue on with the series. Like, I'm not dying to read the next book, you know what I mean? But I definitely will continue on with the series at some point in the next few months. Then I think I would put the, I don't even know what the series is called, Throne of the Fallen. The main reason why I'm not the most excited to continue on with the series is that they're interconnected standalones. It doesn't end on a cliffhanger. We really just get Envy and Camilla's happily ever after at the very end of this. And you know, we know that there's going to be subsequent books about completely different couples, right? So it's a little bit different in that way compared to all the other series that I started in this vlog. And I think next I would put the Crowns of Nyaxia series. I really think I just need to process this book before even thinking about going on to the next one. Wow. Like I said, like I'm just not ready yet. But I know that when I'm ready, I am going to adore the next books of the series. It's just, I'm not there yet. I need to process for sure. So I think the series that I'm the most excited to continue on with would absolutely be the Legends of Thesmar series. I adored this first book so much. I love the way this book ended. I cannot wait to see how the relationship between Wilder and Althea further develops. The world is so intriguing. Like, I'm just obsessed. I am obsessed with the whole vibe that this series is giving. I definitely think I will be continuing this series before all of the others that I just talked about. But first and foremost, before I can even think about continuing with these series, I absolutely have to continue the Plated Prisoner series by Raven Kennedy. Oh my God, if you have watched my last couple of videos, I will link them up in the cards above. You will know how obsessed I am with this series. The way that Glow book 4 ended, I am salivating to continue on with this series. And my love for Auron and Slade and this world and the way that Raven Kennedy has written this series, like, truly knows no bounds. Absolutely obsessed. So yes, this is going to be my next fantasy romance read for sure. And then I'll continue with the rest of these series. So with all of that being said, I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. I definitely had a really fun time filming it. I am absolutely in my fantasy romance era, and I don't see that ending anytime soon. So with all of that being said, I would love it if you would leave a comment down below if you want to discuss any of the books that I featured in this video. If you want to give me or anyone else who is watching more fantasy or fantasy romance recommendations, I would love that as well. I always love getting recommendations from you guys. I would also love it if you would leave a like and subscribe, and I thank you so much in advance if you do. And with all of that being said, I will see you guys in the next video. Bye!